All right. Hello, everybody. So, welcome to another talk for Rebecoming the One in 2023. And today I am talking with Ari Moshe Wolfe, who is a very good friend and the person I would say is my primary teacher conduit of astrology in my own world, my own life. And it's just a complete pleasure, total honor to be with you, Ari, all the time. Every time. And so for everyone today, we are going to be, Ari is going to be focusing on doing a dive into the Libra Aries axis and specifically talking about the fact that the nodes of the moon are going to be switching into Libra and Aries while Pluto is squaring the nodes. So those of you who know Ari know that Ari is an incredibly deeply soul-centered human and astrologer, but just human, period. And something that's true for me in listening to you, Ari, I've said this many, many, many times to you directly, and I've said this on other videos we've made, that when you speak about astrology, but when you just speak about life, it's like this direct line straight into my heart, into my soul. That feels like it's coming straight from your soul. So I'm really looking forward to this. And thank you for being here.
Glad to be here, Martha.
So why don't I read your bio so people who don't know you know a little about you. With clarity and compassion, Ari Moshe teaches astrology as a spiritual study that serves in our own soul evolution. Ari Moshe's teaching is rooted in the beautiful lineage of evolutionary astrology as taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green and continues to blossom with his own ongoing realization. Ari also deeply draws upon the wisdom teachings of A Course in Miracles and brings his music with him wherever he goes. And actually, the first time you did a reading for me, was in Santa Cruz in what, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
5, yeah.
And 5 years ago, yeah. And you sang one of your songs to me because it was relevant to my fourth house stuff. And I had it going through my head just like yesterday morning. It was still helpful 5 years later.
What song? What
It
song?
was, something about home. One of you have like 2-3 songs about home.
Oh, I have many. Okay.
Okay. Well, it was the Neptune in fourth house dynamic.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. So as a way to drop into this particular topic, I would love to hear in your words, why did this arise for you? This symposium is about it's really about holding space for the healing of our world, which we're all wanting, we're all here to be part of. And it's about accessing that healing through the lens of healing our relationship to gender and sexuality. So when I asked you to be a speaker again in the symposium, this is the topic that came to you. And I can think of lots of reasons why it's incredibly relevant, because it is. But I would love to hear your words with that.
This to me feels to be such an essential topic and one that fits so well with this symposium. When we're looking at our relationship to gender and sexuality, we're looking at relationship. We're not just studying it or analyzing it. We're looking at ourselves in relationship to one another. So this is Libra. When we look at Libra, we're looking at relationship in the full scope of what that means. So Libra is not just intimate relationships, it's relationship. It's one of 4 cardinal signs in astrology. Cardinal initiates. It begins. So when you meet someone, there's a sense of, oh, I don't know you. You're different. what are you giving? What am I giving? What's the purpose of this meeting? What's our interaction all about? The cardinal energetic implies a process of discovery and learning. We're moving into a process of, it's a year and a half where the nodal axis is in the Aries and Libra polarity. This year in 2023, Pluto, which is, moving back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius, is squaring the nodal axis. I think the full scope of the square is like from this past February up until this upcoming December. It's a very powerful time. And this says that the nodal axis is very, very heightened, that there's a significant amount of evolutionary work. And when we say evolutionary work, it means deeper subconscious content coming up for healing, opportunities, invitations, new choices that will actually open up and further our soul growth through the Aries Libra axis. So to really understand Libra, and of course its polarity, Aries, what does this axis speak to? In terms of our own self-knowledge, in terms of our own relationship needs, our own sense of purpose and direction in life, and in terms of how we are in relationship to other people, because everyone is who they are. And also everyone is in an ongoing process of becoming, of finding themselves. And so here we are in relationship, learning how to be in relationship while we're also learning so much about ourselves. This is the Aries Libra axis in its essence. So it is incredibly valuable to dive deeply into this axis. There's a lot to unpack, many gems, many nuances, many areas of healing that I'm excited to explore here.
Cool. And before we go further, I realized I also want to say, so in this talk, you're going to give an overview of this topic, and then you're going to be doing an optional paid workshop on Friday, June 30th, which if those of you watching this video are watching this right at the time that it's coming out for the symposium, it'll be this coming Friday, basically. But any of you who are watching this video later, this workshop will also be recorded and will be available indefinitely. So Ari, do you want to just outline kind of the difference between what this talk is going to entail and then what that workshop is going to be
Absolutely.
about?
Today is a conversation and a deep exploration of the Aries Libra axis, and in particular, as it's manifesting in the year of 2023 with Pluto squaring that axis. In the paid workshop, we're going to look at this axis in your natal chart, right? Everyone has Aries and Libra somewhere in the chart. Where are these nodes moving in the natal chart? We'll move through the houses. We'll apply these teachings in various chart signatures and have the opportunity as well to look at actual live examples. So if you want to volunteer or use your chart as an example, you can do that as well.
So where do you want to start?
All
Go
right.
for it.
Start somewhere in the circle.
Yes.
Here's how we'll do our learning today. I want to start by defining the Aries and the Libra archetypes on their own, and then what they symbolize as an axis, then apply them in the current context of the 2023 transits. Now, as we do this, I want everyone to appreciate that when we delve into astrology, any signature, any facet of astrology, we're always looking at something that has an immense amount of depth. Okay, so there's nothing descriptive here in terms of this is, if you have a certain planet in Aries or a certain planet in Libra, then it means you're like this. Every archetype really reflects a depth of potential realization and growth. And so what we're going to look at here is, what is that process of realization? What is potentiated within each archetype? What are the challenges? And how do we understand them together? Let us start with Aries. Now, Aries on the most basic level correspond to the archetype of individuation and purpose. Individuation reflects a sense that each soul coming into human experience, and I should say, when I speak about ourselves and our human experience, I do it with respect to the idea that we are not, in our essence, this human form. We are not this body. We are not this gender identity. We are not the personal human temporal context. It's a part of the vehicle. It's a part of the template of our own journey. And learning how to inhabit that consciously and with agency is a part of the journey, but it doesn't define who we are in its entirety. From the point of view of the Aries archetype, the question becomes, what am I here to do as an individual soul in this human experience? What do I want? Where am I going? And on the most gross level of consciousness, Aries is going to reflect instinctual responses. Instinctual responses. I like that. I want it. I'm going to go and take it. I don't like that. I'm going to defend myself against it. I don't like the way you feel, how I feel around you. So I'm going to attack you or interrupt you or be defensive. What happens within the Aries archetype, and this also is reflected in Mars, the ruler of Aries, we become progressively more self-aware. This self-awareness happens as we become aware of the consequence of action. So on a most refined, gross level of consciousness, there isn't a significant amount of intelligence within the Aries archetype. It's just acting and it's impulsive. Then we realize, oh, well, it doesn't really work very well when I act that way. If I put my finger in the socket, I'll get shocked. If I just act upon impulses, I don't really get very far. And we become more and more aware of, what is it I'm trying to get out of life? What's my goal? What's my sense of purpose, right? And then how do I want to act and respond to experience accordingly? Now, the existential angst and challenge within the Aries archetype is each individual soul, as an individual soul with an individual purpose, unique personality, a unique personal soul context, we have a lot of energy to use. And your path is different than my path. Where I am to go and the choices that I am to make are very much specific to my own soul curriculum, my own sense of purpose. And we don't know what to do with all of this energy. I mean, just think of children. They have so much energy, but they haven't yet learned necessarily how to use it in alignment. And so they need a lot of guidance. There needs to be some adequate level of safety for energy to be used, but then also to be taught, hey, don't grab. Learn how to share. Learn your limitations. Learn your capacities. We're all like that throughout our life. There's a learning curve for all of us within the Aries archetype. And we become more self-aware as we realize, okay, this is what's important to me. This is what I'm trying to get out of life. So acting out of anger right now, let's say, that's not going to be effective. However, the question then becomes, what in the world do I do with this energy? If I'm not going to lash out, if I'm not going to act on my instinctual impulses, what do I do with this energy that I'm feeling inside that in a more unconscious state, I would just be acting on it? Okay. So there's a refinement process where we're really learning how to be a good leader, direct this energy purposefully, thoughtfully, consciously. In a sense, it's taking a very fiery, potentially destructive force. And the evolutionary process within Aries is learning what to do with it. And we can have a very strong perception within the Aries archetype of feeling limited in some essential way. Because we have energy, we have a sense of purpose, and we need freedom in Aries to act. If we don't feel free to make our own choices, then within the Aries archetype, we're going to feel rebellious. We're going to feel limited. We're going to feel stifled. We're going to feel angry. So we need to be able to do something with this energy. We can't just repress it. Thus, we need to know our own freedom. We need to be able to access a certain level of agency and freedom to make choices, but enough awareness about why we're making those choices. And it's helpful for us to appreciate and recognize. This is true for every soul, wherever we have Aries, wherever Mars is in our chart. there's a threshold to which we're going to make choices and we're going to learn about it afterwards. It's just true. It's just true. That's the evolutionary process. Oh, that wasn't a good idea. In fact, I made that choice like 20 times in the past 20 years. Oh, now I really get it. We become so profoundly reflective and self-aware by becoming present to the limitations and the challenges and the circumstances in our life that are keeping us not free. And this very much relates to other archetypes as well. Saturn, Capricorn is a big part of this, but where it translates to Aries is where then we have to translate that into how can I make new choices? We become more thoughtful of where do I really want to go? Where do I really want to get? That's a maturation within Aries. We have to learn how to repress urges, become more of a leader of our own soul path. So I'll close this piece by just giving the analogy. You can think of the analogy of a soldier executing the commands of the general being the soul that ideally has wisdom, is able to look at the field of our life experience and say, this is where we're trying to go. This is our goal. This is our objective. We're going to proceed. We're going to retreat. We're going to advance. We're going to navigate each battle, each experience wisely with respect to the larger long-term goal. And the soldier will just follow. It's not going to just act on its own personal, subjective, immature sense of mission and purpose and keep on advancing. Sometimes the right thing to do with this energy is to go within and review. Think about it. Kind of reformulate a vision and a plan for one's life. So that's the essence of Aries. Where I actually want to give the majority of our attention today is in Libra, and there are two reasons for that. So the nodal axis is moving into the Aries Libra polarity. The north node will be in Aries, and I'll speak to that. The south node is in Libra. But what's happening during this year, the ruler of Libra, Venus, is going retrograde for much of this year. Now, I want to give a moment to speak to rulership. We'll drop more into this during the paid class. When we look at this polarity in our chart, both transit and natally, we also want to tune into the rulership. So for example, Aries north node moving through your chart, where's Mars? Both transiting Mars, but also where's your natal Mars? That's going to give you a lot more information for where we are each cultivating this leadership and becoming profoundly more self-aware. With the south node in Libra, where's transiting Venus? Where's natal Venus? And it's just very heightened. Venus is incredibly heightened this year. And for other reasons that I'll speak to soon, when we get more into the nuanced left brain astrology, there's a lot of core essential healing and realignment happening in the Libra realm. So I'm going to proceed by speaking to Libra and then bring in the astrology and what's actually going on this year. Something Jeffrey Wolf Green said about Libra, which I find to be very helpful, is Libra is not inherently balanced. We might think of it as that, right? The scales. Libra's imbalanced. Wherever Libra and Venus is in our chart, it's where we are not inherently balanced and we're going to learn balance. And this learning happens through the exploration of extremes. So relationally, I'm going to explore many different relationships, experience what it's like to be with this person and these agreements, these forms, and oh, that felt a little bit too out of balance in that way. Okay, well, I want to try this. I don't really like doing this. All right, I do like that. And it really comes back down to what we can say is our feeling body. Libra corresponds to feelings. And I just want to differentiate that between Cancer, which corresponds to emotions. Okay? So feelings literally refers to that which we're sensing. It's of the senses. So when we feel something, it implies relationship, right? I'm feeling this cup. There's a relationship here. There's a sort of consciousness and intelligence in feeling. We notice our feelings. When I'm around this person or when I act a certain way or when I make certain agreements, how does that feel? And that's the gauge of Libra. We're noticing our feelings And that tells us if we're in balance. And balance isn't like a static state of like, I figured it out. It's a dynamic exploration. And this is where listening and the archetype of listening and the psychology of listening comes in. Who are you? What do you want? What are your needs? What are your expectations, right? And what are mine? And how do we come together? Libra is all relationships. So some relationships we can say are going to be more heightened, are going to be more sensational in terms of feeling. There's going to be a lot more of that exploration of extremes to find balance. Others are you're buying food at the grocery store and you give the person money and they give you a receipt. It's all relationship. And each relationship has their own set of agreements, their own set of expectations. So one thing we can say about Libra is we're looking at the realm of relationship, where we are learning a lot about ourselves through intimacy with other people, but it's all conditional. And by conditional, I simply mean the form of every relationship that we come into is specific to the purpose of that relationship. We can say the higher octave of Venus, right? The higher relational understanding is more of a Neptunian Pisces understanding, which is unconditional love. We can say the deeper purpose of all things is love, is forgiveness, is healing, is return. But the conditional expression of all the ways in which relationship shows up in our life, and in a way, the unique curriculum, the unique form and learning that it takes is a Libra thing. So we're learning through extremes in Libra. And as I mentioned, Libra is cardinal, Aries is cardinal. They're both archetypes that correspond to initiating, starting. Right? So with Aries, the cardinality is, here I am. I exist as this unique being with all of this energy. What am I going to do? What am I going to do with it? Well, I don't know. I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I'm here for. I don't even know what the purpose is. So the cardinality of Aries is a lot of learning through experience, through instinctive action. One of my first teachers, Adam Ginsberg, once said, Libra is as instinctive about as Aries is, but it's instinctive about other people. Let me get involved. Let me try this. Let me connect. Let me share intimacy. Let me engage in relationship. Let me engage in conversation. Let me get curious. It's about, I want to know more about myself, and I don't know enough about myself. So I need new relationship experience in the same way that Aries is needing to do something to find itself. So yeah, let me get into a relationship. Let me have sex with this person. Let me say yes to this. Let me say no to this. And it's like, oh, that didn't feel right. Or let me ask of this. And the refinement of self-awareness that happens in Libra is we become greater masters of navigating the realm of relationship consciously. We begin to more consciously discern, what can I give? What can I not give? What do I want? What do I need? And these are things that change. This is one of the most confusing things about relationship. We can't like make a list of these are my needs. It's very much all a part of a learning journey. And we can get very, very hooked on, well, I need another person to act this way towards me. I need another person to treat me this way. And that's not actually always the higher teaching. In fact, in this culture, we can say maybe even Western culture in general, we can get very hooked on these ideas and these standards that says, here are my guidelines for a relationship. This is how I need other people to act. This is how I need to feel around other people. And what happens is we oftentimes end up creating a wall that doesn't allow us to really cultivate our own alignment, realizing it's not about all of our needs getting met. It's not about always feeling a certain way around other people. Not every person will meet the same needs, and we're not going to feel internally the same around other people. And that doesn't mean it's a bad relationship. It's more about, what are my intentions and what are our intentions? Where are we choosing to meet each other? What are the agreements here? What can I give? What can you give? And the giving may not be perfect, right? How we meet each other may not be ideal. And this is not just romantic relationship, it's every single relationship in the world. The purpose, the growth, the maturation is consciousness, conscious relationship, conscious communication, conscious listening. So when we're not consciously engaging with one another, then there are these unspoken expectations and needs. Well, I need you to act a certain way because then I'll feel a certain way. And if you're not acting a certain way, it's an issue. And so I'm going to find someone else. And we do that all the time. There's a lot of value in recognizing the extent to which within the Libra archetype, in our patriarchal conditioning, we're raised to value this idea of a perfect relationship, a perfect experience. And the other end of that, right, is we're so identified with how another person will make us feel that we're so afraid of the relationship not being what we wanted it to be. So this is one of the juicier issues that I want to drop into with Libra that I think is really up right now. And this corresponds to all of the ways in which we have karmic patterns and tendencies to get involved and to share and engage in relationship in ways that are actually destabilizing, not conducive of balance and harmony. The temptation is either to compromise or hold these expectations of ourselves to create something because we're addicted to the affinity. I like the feeling of being in a state of affinity and connection. So I'm going to compromise my values or the way that I want to feel and give to make the other person feel a certain way. And if they're happy, I'll be happy. So that's what we generally will call codependency, right? And our happiness might seem very genuine, very sincere, right? If we've built an identification around my sense of balance and harmony, Libra, is determined by the other person being happy with me and happy with himself. It's not really balance and harmony. It's an identity construct that we've learned, that we've conditioned. And in a moment, I'll share a chart just to really unpack some of these patterns astrologically and look at some interrelationships. That's very helpful for our learning. So that's one example of this dynamic that will really be coming up. Right? Where do we associate harmony and balance with these repressive, compromised conditions? And just think about how often we are taught to do this. Right? The other end of that would be expectations that aren't consciously agreed, but just projected. I need you to act a certain way. I need you to behave a certain way for me to feel the way that I want to feel. And if you're not, then I'm going to terminate the relationship. Right? This is where we're not doing the work of communication, of really getting to know one another, true intimacy, because we're afraid if the other person isn't this thing for me, I'm not going to feel good about myself. So let me share the screen and actually highlight some of these things that I'm speaking to. We can look at the natural interrelationship between zodiac signs to understand some of the deeper karmic dynamics that can emerge. Now, I'll do this a bit with Aries in a moment, but again, we're really focusing a lot right now on Libra. So Libra is archetypally square to Capricorn and Cancer. This is a 90-degree aspect. Looking at the square between signs is a very helpful way of understanding just the challenges, the tense point within that particular archetype, and where there can be more wisdom and mastery that's cultivated over time in a natural maturation process. So let's look at Libra and the tendency for indecision. This is a huge piece. Anyone with any chart with Libra in the chart, which is all of us, has this somewhere. The archetype of indecision speaks to, I don't know what to do. Can I give this? Should I give this? Am I available for this? What choice do I make? Right? Do I go here? Do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I say yes? Do I do no? The archetype of indecision can be incredibly debilitating and destabilizing within the Libra archetype. Often what's going on is we have not learned how to listen to our feelings and to feel affirmed and valid and safe in our feelings. Now, the Capricorn Libra square is social judgment, or the conditioning from our early imprinting. It says, you can't feel a certain way, right? You have to be this way. I need you to act this way. I need you to give this to me. Or you're having these feelings, that's not allowed. There's no space, so maybe not being listened to, where the part of our being that needs to feel accepted and appreciated and loved as we are was invalidated. Now, the other end of that, Libra square to Cancer, is where we develop that attachment. I need another person to approve of me, because otherwise, Cancer, I'm not going to feel safe on a fundamental level. Right? We form attachments to other people in our early imprinting that says, if you accept and love and approve of me, I'm going to feel wanted and approved of on a fundamental level, meaning on a level of self-identity. If I don't feel loved, I don't feel safe. In Cancer, not feeling safe is I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to face the world. It's a fundamental insecurity that says there is something unsafe about life, about existence. I'm not welcomed. I'm not going to be fed. If I'm crying, I'm not going to be held. I'm not going to be nurtured, right? Now, we can create these patterns where we're so addicted to being approved of, not being judged, or so afraid of the consequences, the rejection, if we are true to our own feelings, that will develop these codependency patterns, right? I need to be loved. I need to be wanted. I need to be approved of. And so I'm going to put my projection of how will other people respond to my choices before really listening to my feeling body. And the thing about Libra, what's amazing about the Libra archetype is feelings change, right? It's not like I want this and that's it. What we want in one moment has so much to do with what we're learning about ourselves in that moment. And so there's a great capacity within Libra to appreciate different perspectives and points of views. There's a profound awareness of relativity. Like, oh, I could want that. I could try that too. There's a lot of open-mindedness, but what's important is for a soul to be able to connect with what's true in the present moment. It's one of the biggest teachings for Libra. Not what can I give, not what consideration can I be open to, what's true right now. And fundamentally, there needs to be an internal sense of permission to say, no, I don't want this, or I don't like doing this, or I don't like the way I feel around this person, or I don't like the way I feel when I do this, or this agreement doesn't feel good to me, or I want this, or I just want to be able to express my feelings. I want that to be safe. So what I'm speaking to here is the archetype of indecision, and where we can really feel ourselves unclear about who we are and where we're going, and finding these dynamics coming up in our life, right? Oftentimes, the essence, the core of it is an unraveling of all this repression and conditioning where we've learned to deny ourselves simply the truth of the present moment, which is what's now, because we don't believe that it's safe to just be here now. We need to be what another person needs or wants us to be, right? Likewise, how do we listen to other people? Can we listen to what's true and alive right here, right now? Or are we listening to what a person told us about themselves 5 minutes ago? We make agreements, but then the present moment says, hey, here's what I'm feeling now. This is what I said I would do this, but actually I don't feel available. Well, that's the worst thing in the world. I can't trust you. That's that repression. That's the fear. That's that ancient learning that says, if people aren't conforming to the expectation that I've had of them, I'm not loved. I'm not safe. I'm not going to get my needs met. But really, it's oh, thank you for speaking the truth right now, because actually, whenever I look at it, that's all there is. You said you were going to do this. and you said you don't feel available. I'm so grateful. I feel disappointment. I'm so grateful for that. Feeling, feeling, feeling. And that's what Libra is about. The moment we go into control of other people or ourselves, there's no longer any intimacy. So the transiting south node in the chart in general, where it's happening, speaks to where karmic dynamics are coming up from the past to be cleansed, to be purified. These can be fruitive dynamics, right? So relationships or relationship patterns that are very well developed. And we'll find it really bringing forward an immense amount of fruition in our relationship, skills that we've developed. But this is also a very powerful time of us becoming aware of agreements, ways of entraining ourselves with other people, and not just specific other people, right? Specific other people come and go, but as a way of being in relationship. We've said, I'm going to get in relationships and relate to people in general where, as long as they like me, as long as they're not angry with me, or as long as they meet these conditions, I can listen to them as long as they fit these boxes, right? All these conditionalities, they're coming to the surface. And when we look at the Aries Libra axis, the nodes transiting, the North Node in Aries says the evolutionary lead is for all of us to really deeply connect with what's my purpose, right? But this axis doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? It's a unit. And so we can't just be like, this isn't working for me. What are we doing in that case? We're leaving a lot of unresolved perceptions there, right? Where we leave a relationship with hate or disunity or distrust is where we are taking hate and disunity and distrust. So it's just the other end of the spectrum. I compromise so much and now I'm not going to do it anymore. That's its own particular entangled consciousness right there. It's not the answer. It's just another extreme. So the learning is, what is it like for me to respect my own true individual sense of purpose and destiny, which only I could know? Okay. And then we bring that into relationship, and I'm giving and I'm engaging because I want to, not because I have to. And I'm respecting the free will and the agency of each individual in every single moment to determine for themselves the extent of their availability. This is a big reworking of our ideas and beliefs about relationship. I mean, it runs so deeply. I'm looking forward to looking at that in our natal charts and even just doing some live work with volunteers, because I don't think we're, in general, as a culture, aware of how deeply rooted we have these ideas about relationship and how it should be and how we're supposed to feel. I can't stress enough that the truth of relationship is a dynamic process of learning. It's not a static point of arrival. And so we're unraveling and becoming aware of these dynamics. Now, what's happening in the sky right now, and I'll just share the screen again to point this out. I mentioned the square between Capricorn and Libra. Okay, so the nodes are in this Libra Aries axis, and we have Pluto also right here in Capricorn. It's retrograding in Capricorn this year, squaring these nodes for several months. Okay, and this summer, or for those in Australia, this time it's incredibly heightened and will be for several months. So one important dimension, which is why this nodal axis is particularly heightened and significant, is because of the square to Pluto in Capricorn. So what I want to do is just speak briefly to this square to Aries and this square to Libra and how it comes together with Pluto and Capricorn squaring the nodes. So the Pluto and Capricorn squaring Aries is about learning how to work with our impulses constructively, long term, right? So we can say, I'm done with you, I'm going to go and, right? But from an Aries Capricorn point of view, we want to think about, what do I really value long term? What do I want to create long term? And if we're creating a path in reactivity, it's not agency, it's not awareness. right? Bring it back to Capricorn Libra. Oh, I made these agreements, or I decided, or I'm doing some therapy, and I realized early in my childhood, I learned how to sacrifice my own needs to be approved of and loved by my siblings or my parents. And I realized I don't need to do that, and I'm afraid of your rejection. Wow, this is hard. So I can see that and actually be able to say, hey, I'm not available for this anymore. So we come to the Aries, but without that angst. And the maturation of Capricorn is twofold. One, becoming aware of our conditioning, seeing how that conditioning has influenced the patternings of relationship in a very essential and core way. And then being able to say with maturity, now it's time for me on my own to determine who I want to be, to walk my own life in, right? Where do I want to go? Where do I want to get? And I think this can feel confusing for a lot of us. Because in many ways, and again, this is the cardinality of that Aries Libra axis, there's a lot to learn. We don't know what it's like to live outside of our patterns of entanglement or codependency or control or expectation. Some of us might find ourselves more in the, controlling leader side. Others might find ourselves more on the following, submissive side within that Libra archetype. But those are both extremes that can manifest within the Libra archetype. We are all learning what is it like to respect our own sovereign agency and another as well. And to do that means cultivating a stance of fundamental curiosity and open-mindedness, wherein our commitment is a commitment to unity, to the feeling of unity, which might mean we're letting go of our commitment to the particular forms that we believed unity needed to take, right? The feeling of togetherness when we both want the same thing, the feeling of togetherness when fill in the blank, but the commitment to unity being a balanced place in our heart where we can bow and respect and appreciate whatever the form is. You're exactly where you need to be. And by engaging consciously, I can honor and respect the unity of our paths in the sense that I can't do this without you. If I reject you, I'm not going to be learning anything about myself. If I just give into patterns, I'm not going to be giving anything about myself. I'm not going to be learning anything. So learning how to really respect your path, and that I can't see your freedom without seeing mine. That's unity. But it might not mean the way that we attach to experience and know it. This is where we go into the unconditional love facet, the higher octave of the Venusian archetype. This is where we really get to appreciate and bow to the beauty and the gift of every single relationship, whatever form it's taking. And we have to appreciate something very important. In our patriarchal conditioning, we're given on a platter a few choices. Of course, in this world, there are many different forms of relationship. In fact, as we're becoming more oriented to appreciate and respect the different ways of knowing ourselves, knowing our relationship to gender, to sexuality, there are different relationship preferences. There are different ways of being together. And in fact, all of that shift and grow and change. Really, my formula for this simply is the more non-judgmental we are about some idea of right and wrong, the more kind and compassionate and permissive we become to all kinds of possibilities. Because when we're not holding on to a standard that says, this is how I need to be loved, this is the way that I need to be to feel good about myself, or this is who you need to be so I can feel good about myself, when we're not holding that and holding ourselves in check in that way, with an open-mindedness, we can say, okay, what does balance look like right now when we're honoring our feelings? And let me bring this back to the indecisiveness, because I just can't stress enough how it's almost like we get so excited about relationship. And it's not, again, not just romantic. I want this to be expanded towards, like, a new job and our coworkers and the people that we're working with, and the affinity that we feel with them, or with our boss or with our children. I mean, every single relationship. And it's so easy to just kind of push it in a certain way where it's like, I need to feel this way around you, and I need it to work a certain way so I can feel that way. Instead of, I want to know myself and I want to feel free in myself, and I want to live and express that freedom. Certain relationships, according to the nature of that contract, means we're not going to be navigating conscious communication in the same ways. For example, with our children, it's not about that. In fact, we might be playing the role of demonstrating and modeling what it's like to respect ourselves and teaching them how to communicate their feelings, right? That's very different than a partner or a romantic connection, where it is very much about, we're not meant to be a father or a mother. Right? That is a very different kind of way of relating, right? So all these different relationships take different forms, have different purpose. But to have an open-mindedness where we can listen to the energy of balance and differentiate between that and our conditioning. And let me just say, the conditioning is so strong, that's why we stay in indecision, because we don't realize the conditioning is just a voice that we've learned to internalize as truth. And so if I make that choice, I'm not going to be loved. And we may not even be able to access clarity around that, because we have such a strong internal stance that says, this is who I have to be, or I have to take responsibility for how other people feel. And so we don't realize that our confusion or uncertainty about our way in life is so deeply embedded in these repressed parts of our own psyche. So learning how to differentiate between our feelings and just what's here now, and very strongly held beliefs and ideas and convictions. And the difference between the two is, again, feelings are present moment. They don't necessarily even have an answer. They just want to be validated and acknowledged. And oftentimes that's all they need, right? And if we're in a relationship with someone, oftentimes that's all we need to do. And we don't have to run towards an answer. Judgment, fear, repression, conditioning is going to have an answer. It's going to say, oh, I need to do this, or I need to be this, or I need to want this, or you need to somehow get around to be this. When we're just embracing the moment without fear, there's nothing to be worried about. There's always safety to look at what is and not have an answer for it. And that's the paradox within the Libra archetype. We are learning how to know ourselves and our own needs and what's right for us and how we're available and how to affirm our own value in life. But paradoxically, that happens through the gift of another person being able to say, I accept you as you are. And yet we only manifest that kind of experience when we stop feeding unhealthy entanglements, meaning we don't allow another person to give us that necessary gift of reflection, which then really helps us know who we are. If we're addicted to the approval that we get from another person. So it's a sort of beautiful paradox, because if we're just looking for approval, we're never going to access our feelings, and we'll never know how to ask for what we really need, because we'll be pressuring ourselves to be somewhere that we're not constantly. But if we're really wanting relationships to manifest in our life in a way that really affirms a sense of freedom and safety, it's not about, oh, that person isn't good for me. I want to really be clear about that. I see so many memes that just celebrate this idea of separation. There's, all these beautiful one-liners that celebrate separation. But rather, I want to invite the perspective. What is it like to become an invitation? And to honor and respect what people are or are not available for. And then it's okay. I don't have to get that need met here. And I can listen to my feeling body and embrace relationships in whatever forms, be it a partner, a counselor, a friend, where I can get these needs met. And it just allows all other relationships to be defined according to what is healthy and possible at that time. So the Libra Aries axis as a whole says, you have your path, I have my path. It's not in a vacuum. How are we listening and learning and relating to one another in a way that allows each of us to really learn and feel good about who we are, while also honoring and respecting our individual sovereignty and agency to evolve and to grow and to live our purpose. So maybe I'll stop here and allow for some interaction, and we can see where else this wants to go.
Well, yeah, I'm having lots of things coming up, but the question that's feeling the most alive for me, I would love to hear your take. So of course, as you know, and some people who maybe have watched some of my other things know, my natal nodes are in Aries and Libra, right? So I feel this polarity very strongly in my life all the time. And the ruler of my north node, Libra, happens to be on my south node. So, it's like this constant dance between this exact polarity in my life, as you know very well. And recently, in the last few months, also, as you know, my dad died. And in the few months since he died last December. So in the few months since he died, I'm feeling this calling and this directive essentially from the spirit world to radically release the conditioning of my own relationship to the masculine, but also to the masculine and feminine, right? So and what it feels like, this is obviously relevant to my personal life, but it feels relevant on a macro level or collective level too. And it feels very much tied to what you're talking about. So for me, on a personal level, what's happening is that my dad actually, he died in Thailand, but his ashes were taken to India, and his ashes were buried on March 23rd, 1.5 hours before Pluto went from Capricorn into Aquarius. Seriously fascinating, right? Seriously fascinating. And as he was being buried, my dad's cousin, who had gotten the ashes in Thailand and taken them to the family plot in India and was burying them, he took a video of him going down the row of the other headstones of my family members in this cemetery. And he was literally, overtly welcoming my dad home to the family. And my dad, to me, represents lots and lots of stuff about maybe the Capricorn archetype in various ways, but including like this sort of colonialist patriarchal conditioning, right? That we would want to maybe do that Aries rejection thing of.
Right.
Yeah. But the way that my dad's cousin did this was so welcoming and so holding of the totality of my dad, right? He said, we welcome you home. We welcome you back to the family. And so I've been really sitting with that. It's like literally my dad got buried. I said goodbye to him. And I was modeled this way of holding totality. So not rejecting, yet also letting go and saying goodbye. You see what I'm saying? And so now what I feel in myself is this learning around what it is to both have let go of this old conditioning and to still be present with it.
Yeah.
And so here's, and I mean, there's so many layers here, and I'm sure we could talk for hours just about this, but now as we're all moving into this, the nodes going to be switching into Aries and Libra with Pluto squaring the nodes. I'm now feeling also this directive for myself, but I think it's relevant collectively. I get told you can't know, you just cannot know yet what this new structure is. Your job right this minute is just to do the letting go, and then to be present in at every moment with the moment. That's it's so similar to what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And then it feels to me like there's a whole new paradigm, a whole new structuring of what it is we're being asked to hold space for with regard to relationship, like moving forward on this planet, or at least moving forward in my own life personally, but I think on the planet. And I don't know what that, like, I have no idea what that is. I feel like I'm not supposed to know what that is yet. So anyway, I would just love any.
So well said. I mean, I think that's the point here. We can really expect that this South Node in Libra time with the square to Pluto, and by the look out for this, in I think October or so when we have the next eclipse season,
Yes.
incredibly heightened, and I think that's around the time that Pluto stations direct too.
And it
So
will be it will be those eclipses will be on my
right
exact
on your
nodal
penis,
reversal.
right? Oh
Exactly.
yeah, underneath. Yeah, right there.
Yep.
20. Yeah, it's it.
Yep.
We can appreciate. So in the same way that in every 300 years ago, was anyone talking about same-sex marriage? Come on, was anyone talking about transgender people having children? Was anyone talking about transgender people? I mean, so there are now people coming into relationship, marriages, partnerships where the terms themselves are defined in very unique ways, right? My primary partner and I have this agreement, and these are the needs that we get met and the agreements that we have, right? And then these are the things that we do elsewhere with other people, right? And it's more than just the terms of monogamy, polyamory. I think the more simplistic our terminology, it's more reflective of how new we are in appreciating the depth and scope of individuality and individual needs, and how when we're coming from a healed mind and a compassionate heart, willing to listen, willing to heal all of the stuff we've been carrying, we find there are many possible ways. There are many ways to move through life with respect to our relationships. And it's not one size fits all. And if we don't really understand that, just look from the outside backwards, what's the divorce rate? Right? The very typical traditional perspective we have on relationship, how we've done it. Clearly, we're missing something with a nearly 50% highly into the double-digit divorce rate here in the United States. I think in most westernized countries in general, it's something to look forward to. The comparison, by the way, let's say Western cultures to some Eastern cultures, or maybe marriages are arranged more traditionally, right? That's a very fascinating thing, because what's the term we're very familiar with in this world of thinking of, and I'm speaking specifically to the idea of marriage to give it an example, that we want eros and love, and a depth of sexual intimacy, and all of these things to be involved in a marriage. And I think there's something very powerful about Western society and how it's become very oriented towards, like, I'm going to affirm what I want, right? Manifest it. But there's a completely other cultural relationship and idea around partnership and marriage in other cultures and throughout time and history. It's not better or worse. It says it doesn't matter who you're with. Love that person, work together, find a way to work. And of course, there's a lot of repression implied in those cultures as well. There are a lot of issues with that. But there are certain beautiful parts to it where it's not about making one person all the things that they need to be for you. That idea is a very modern Western way of thinking. And I think it's where we've gotten so materialistic. One thing to say about Venus, the ruler of Libra, also the ruler of Taurus, it's commodification. We identify with our sensual pleasures and gratifications, the things that we think we need. We're always seeking more. We want to move towards what feels good and move away from what doesn't feel good. Same thing with people. right? I'm in a relationship. This is my partner. Just the very terminology. Am I single? Am I coupled? The very way that we talk about relationship is so entangled with a sort of self-value and possessiveness around who I am relative to who I'm with. That's completely insane in my view. When we appreciate that relationship from a truly authentic, compassionate stance wants to be very fluid and open in the listening. It wants to reveal how it wants to flow and move. When we're not conditioning and repressing ourselves, we can appreciate the different purposes and reasons for our different ways of being in relationship to one another at certain times. When we can really appreciate that, there's actually much less of a sense of importance around being in it or having found it, because we see how sort of empty and shallow that is. And I really want to invite us to think about that as we move into this very powerful Libra Aries time, because I think it's also a little bit disempowering. Our value and our vastness, our magnitude is so much greater than we realize, but we're limiting ourselves according to a very limited perception of needs and what we need to experience in relationship or what we need other people to be for us. So yeah, this is just a time of profound opening, but it's hard because all of our conditioning and agreements and expectations can really come up. I want to say one more thing on this, Martha, that really feels important. Libra does correspond to the archetype of giving. And there are immense teachings about giving. Right? When we're giving without the expectation of getting, we can really give, and we're going to receive a lot from that giving. And giving from a Libra point of view, it's not about endless giving, indiscriminate. It's about within the container or conditions of this particular relationship, what does endless generosity and openness look like? Right? So giving isn't the same for every single person in the same way, but the consciousness of caring and giving and generosity, that consciousness can be there. But when we associate that giving with a particular form, we find ourselves getting stuck in compromise or conditions that aren't livable or breathable. When we really understand the way in which giving wants to look, sometimes, and this is a Jeff Green quote, the supreme form of giving oftentimes means appearing not to give. But that creates the space for a giving and a sharing that can feel completely wholehearted, where we're not looking for something in return. But we only can do that when we're not creating terms for our relationship that keeps us stuck. It's so funny, our generosity and our love and our capacity to really give and to share freely and openly becomes convoluted when we try to determine from our conditioning how things have to be. Then we might think there's a lot of giving, but actually it's a lot of forcing. And then we need it and we expect it and we need others to give to us a certain way. So I just want to say that this time can be a time where we really get the gift that we are to one another. When we're not defining our own value and self-worth through relationship itself becomes a place where we really get to learn more about who we are, how to love, how to give deeply and freely and generously, how to ask for what we need, how to listen, how to experience our own freedom simultaneous to feeling unconditionally loved and accepted just as we are. And if we don't have people in our life that we can just talk to, it's really valuable with this Libra transit to open to that in whatever ways that is available for us. If it's a counselor, even the value of just being able to find yourself outside of the entanglement of expectations so that the gem of our open heart can actually be found and we can experience immense richness in all of our relations.
Beautiful. Yes, we could go on and on. The one thing I was thinking to point out and just emphasize for people is in terms of looking at your own chart and your own life, like, I'm thinking about the fact that, you know, the nodes always exist. They're always going through our chart somewhere, right? So we always could look at our chart and where the transiting nodes are and have information come up. But
Yeah.
when I'm thinking about the workshop that you're going to be doing on Friday, June 30th, and I'm thinking about dropping into people's charts, what I'm realizing is important to say out loud that maybe is obvious to me and maybe obvious to you, and you kind of talked about it at the beginning, but I want to make it really clear that when Pluto is squaring the transiting nodes, it's a whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about my own chart. So like I was saying, next fall, the nodes will be in Aries and Libra, where my nodes happen to be, except mine are flipped. So I'll be having what's called the nodal nodal reversal. But not only am I going to be having a nodal reversal, I'm going to have a nodal reversal on the eclipses with Pluto still squaring the nodes. It's like,
That's really
yeah,
powerful.
really powerful. Yeah. And I'm already feeling that because even now, we're recording this in April of 2023, and we're about to have these eclipses coming up, and I can already feel that the nodes are heading toward my nose and Pluto's squaring. You know, I can just already feel the dynamics kind of working its way there. But so I just want to emphasize that for people, is that this is like, I don't know, Ari, do you want to put in your own words the difference between just any old nodes going anywhere and Pluto squaring the nodes?
Well, Pluto is evolutionary necessity.
Yeah.
Right? So where Pluto is transiting speaks to facing the edge of our unconsciousness. So this is where we're needing, I mean, it's not just Pluto and Capricorn, it's not just these nodes, it's all of it together. So the evolutionary requirements of Pluto retrograde now in Capricorn is pushing us to face our underlying social conditioning, where we've made agreements and expectations. And it's also specifically in particular relationships, certain contracts where the intentions are really coming to a head right now.
Yeah.
What is repressed and unaddressed is coming to the surface right now and needs to be integrated.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And it's hard because it's going to face Pluto, where we have these deep attachments or fundamental security needs. I don't want to let go, or I need it to be a certain way. Our deepest psychological limitations and where we are most afraid of change is where we find Pluto, and also ultimately the possibility of total metamorphosis.
Yes.
But we have to go into the shadow. We have to go into the deeper, oh yeah, because if I cry or if I'm vulnerable, I've come to believe that I'm not going to be loved. Or if I say no, I've come to believe I'm not going to be loved. Or if I don't try to control who this person is for me, I'm going to lose them, and I'm going to actually face the fact that I feel really lonely and worthless within myself. Like, we're just going to have to look at these things. I think the Aries North Node says, hey, you're alone. Deal with it. Stop running away from the existential discomfort of being alone by hiding and running away through all these relationship patterns. Hey, you're not okay with yourself. Time to deal with it. We can't continue to manipulate the world and ourselves to not feel the void that we feel inside, because on the other end of that is the joy and the freedom to live. That's Aries. It's like, what am I gonna do? I'm loved, I'm safe, I'm secure, I am sourced. What am I gonna do?
Awesome. And I would say, add in one thing about the Pluto squaring the nodes, or just Pluto in general, from my personal experience at least, is that I can look at the astrology of my own chart, let's say, and I can say, yeah, okay, the lesson is this. I just need to get there and do it. My South Node is in Aries, so I just want to do it. I just want to move on.
Sure.
I can get it. Like, let's learn the lesson. Done.
Yeah.
You know? and then for me, at least, the Pluto energy brings me to the reality that I am the lesson has to come through my being, has to come through my soul, it has to come through my body. Like, I can't bypass it through my brain, you know,
Right.
which is so frustrating because I really want to. Yeah. And anyway, I just want to add that in. It's here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. So anything anything you want to add about the workshop and anything you want to say about, okay, three things.
Well, if you're,
Anything that feels, yeah. Is there anything else that feels unsaid with this talk? Number two, do you want to add anything about the workshop? And number three, what would you like to share about you, what you do in the world, what you want to invite people into?
for the workshop, whether or not you're a volunteer, look at your chart, take some time, and even if you don't know your chart, reflect on where is this alive for you. If you're alive right now at the time of the airing of this interview, I have no doubt you can relate to this. It's here, it's happening. Where is it happening? And we don't have to know the answers, but look at these pointers, your feeling body, the terms, the agreements, the conditions of your relationships, where change is happening. This is where there's an immense amount of evolutionary work and healing happening. Take some time to reflect on that. And even prayerfully kind of grab the tail of the tiger, bring it into class. I think this will be a very healing and illuminating class to apply this directly in our lives. Me, I'm always doing something. Check out my website. I have a self-study program available for anyone that wants to study the evolutionary astrology teachings that I've received and learned from Jeffrey Wolf Green that I put out in my own curriculum. You can enroll in that at any time of the year. I have various ongoing class series and ways to study with me available. So you can just check that out at arimoshe.com, including personal sessions. And I also do soul-to-soul companionship, which is a long-term period of working with me over many sessions, discounted. And it's a way of cultivating more intimacy and just kind of going deeper on a soul level together.
And I have done all of the above with you. So I give a full endorsement, recommendation of all of it.
Thank you.
Yes. It's, I mean, truly changed my world. I think, you know, I've been working with you for 5 years now. So yes, highly recommend Ari on every level. Awesome. Cool. Well, any other last words?
No.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ari. Always.
My pleasure. Thank you, Martha.
See you all soon.